Fulton Street Beats. This is the 7-string jazz box from Guitar Kit World. And if you watch the unboxing video, you'll know that it came with everything it was supposed to come with. And the finish on this already, now unfinished, but the sanding on this, the way it's been cut, is pretty good. It's not going to require a lot of work, but we're going to start that work today. And I'm not going to use a block on this today. I'm going to actually just take some 400 grit, and because this is actually done pretty well, so we're just going to go over the guitar and start with the edges and work in. And 400 on this one. This guitar, particular one, being basically a hollow body, I'm not sure what kind of plies they use, so we're not going to raise the grain on this. Now, this is mahogany, but I'm not going to risk raising the grain or having any glue separate or anything like that. Not that it would, but the finish is so nice on it. Already, there's really not a point of doing it, especially the way it came. I mean, just that little scuffing I'm doing right there is bringing the surface nice and smooth. So, one thing I want to go over with a build, if you're building a guitar for the first time, you kind of want to plan out your strategy, how you're going to do it first. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can approach building a guitar. For me, approaching building one with binding is you can take different steps. For instance, we're not going to scrape this binding. I'm going to be staining the top of this guitar and doing a contrast stain on the sides and on the back. With the polyurethane stain that I'll be using, there's no need to do the binding as long as your binding is flush and level, and that's what I'm doing right now, going around the binding and making sure it's flush with the body. And when we're done, you want to make sure that you don't have any edges or anything sticking out. Binding sands very, very quickly. And our finishing steps, if you see any sand marks in your binding, you really don't have to worry about it, because when we apply our lacquer, the lacquer will actually melt the binding just a bit to give it a very smooth look. If you're going to be scraping your binding, if you're going to go that far and start scraping,
make sure your hands are clean and free of grease. I recommend washing your hands with some dish soap before you start building or anything that has to do with the woodwork. We don't want to get any unnecessary oils trapped in the wood. Bad oils, not your stain oils. If you have oil-based stain, that's fine. That's all compatible with lacquer. Some things are not compatible with lacquer. Do not use food coloring with certain types of lacquer. It won't work. It will bubble the lacquer. So just be careful there. So there we have it. There is that. Now, we're going to start applying some stain, and what we're going to use is I decided to go dark on the front. We're going to use a black stain, but I'm going to thin this with some mineral spirits and try to apply it a little bit lightly until we get the design. It is a satin polyurethane stain in one, and I've thinned it a little bit, and I'm just going to use this little applicator that I made up, and we're going to see if we can take our time, get some color in here.
So like I was saying, just be very careful. Get your binding nice and smooth by sanding. Make sure you get inside your F-holes. Pay attention to any ridges that you might have. Knock those down quickly, and then you're ready to apply the stain. And the stain goes on very easily. It's better to apply less than more, because you can always add more. I'm trying to get an antique look, so that's what we're going for with this. I want a kind of a played look, but we want it to look good too, and we will be adding some highlights in the center to set this off, as well as highlighting the F-holes using some mineral spirits. Mineral spirits is a very important thing to have when staining a guitar. When you're applying your stain and you're not going to be scraping your binding, make sure that you take care not to get too much on the binding, because like I said, we will be removing the stain from the binding using mineral spirits. So we don't want to excess build up on the binding.
Some people finish their guitars with the necks on. I don't like to do that. I get a little more. Let's see. Go. I don't like to do that. Sometimes I do, but sometimes it can be a pain, especially when you. So I think the neck is going to remain a natural color also. Now this is a very nice antiqued look. I am liking it a lot. I hope you guys are liking that too. Isn't that beautiful? And once again, that is a Varathane Premium poly stain, polyurethane and stain in one. And once again, go around, pay special care to the edges. Sweep around to highlight just a little color variation, and I think that actually is working. And I'm going to come back in with a little dark. And we'll clean up the binding later. And I think that's going to look great. Let's set this to the side. And let's move on to something else real quick. Now, here's our neck. Our beautiful neck. Now, I want to contrast this with the body. So, I think a nice contrast, well, possibly, we could possibly use that black, I guess, or we could use some of that cherry. Why don't we use a cherry on the face, a light cherry, something almost not noticeable. So like I just said, this is just a hint of cherry on the face of the headstock, and this is really gonna set the guitar off and contrast the guitar when it's done. I haven't decided on a headstock logo yet, exactly what I'm going to do, but once again, just be careful of your bindings. There
and
we go.
Make sure you can wipe it off.
That's all
when
I
you're
needed
done.
to do there. Gorgeous. So I think we've decided what we're going to do with the rest of the guitar as far as color. That's going to be our natural color that we're going to use, just a light cherry, very light, just enough to give it a shimmer. Super nice. Okay, let's set this neck to the side. We'll let it dry. Let's come back to our body here. Let's get some cherry on the rack.
Now what you're going to notice is how deep the mahogany gets with this cherry color. A much richer tone than what the maple takes, and that's because mahogany has a more porous grain, so it really can sink in there, and it looks quite beautiful. Now this will lighten up quite a bit as it dries, but then once we start lacquering this guitar, it's going to really pop. Now this guitar is going to sit a little bit before I do the lacquering. And here I come back in with some cherry. Now that it has had time to set a little bit, I come back in and add some cherry highlights in the center. Again, these highlights become diminished as it dries, but once we lacquer the guitar, it will give us just the right hue of what I'm looking for. You have it, you see our little flare in the center, just enough to highlight it. I think that is where we need it. Okay,
Okay, so what we're going to do now is take a bit of mineral spirits on a paper towel. Now we're going to come into our F-holes and clean up our F-holes. And sometimes it takes a couple passes. This is just easier than scraping the binding. And it may require quite a bit of paper towels because once they get contaminated, you have to do it again. So just take your time, get a pass. You can see the black coming off. Right now we're paying attention to the inside of the F-holes. And then flip it over. And we can get the upper edge. And you can see lightens a little bit around the F-holes, which is fine if you want it highlighted. Trust me, this is much easier. Now we got a spot up top that's got quite a bit of black on it, so we're gonna get a new paper towel for that. But let's clean out what we can, and then we'll this edge while we're here. See it, lighten it, and I'm going to do a fresh pass all the white and make sure it's all off. And I'll show this to you. And now we have nice, clean F-holes that require no scraping. Now we can get our molding on the side. Same thing, except we're going to start with a fresh paper towel again. And we're simply going to go around the edge to start. So there is that, and now we're going to kind of get up into some other these other spots real quick. Fold this, a bit more mineral spirits. Now we got that done. Now we're going to come around the top edge. Make sure top edge. Boom. Just like that. Like I said, if we need to scrape some, not an issue. Not a big deal at all. I hope you guys can see how nicely that turned out. Now we're going to toss that to the side, grab a fresh paper towel that is a little damp. I'm just going to run it around the whole thing quickly. There we are. And what this does is it prevents the bleed over. I'm going to apply the stain to the back. And the reason I didn't apply it all at once is because I wanted some time for the stain to settle on the sides, for one, and two, I didn't want to get an overabundance of stain on the binding. It's easier to wipe off when you can attack it quickly after you apply your stain.
here is our finished look thus far. We may do a sanding and some spot touching up, but for the most part, looking very decent. Definitely that two-tone really sets it off. You might see some hairs or something on it, guys. It's just sitting out, but let's get it back. Very nice. Very nice. What are we going to do with the neck? Well, probably going to keep the neck natural because it makes it very playable, but doesn't that look gorgeous? Definitely gorgeous. Okay, so this is dried not for too long, but what I'm going to do now, while it is finishing up drying, as you can see, it looks great, right? Nice contrast, very old school looking, definitely has a jazzy vibe to it. We're going to set this neck. Now, I've already checked the neck to make sure everything was going to line up correctly. It does. You're going to want to do that. Different methods of doing that. Let me see. We're going to glue this neck in and set it in, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. Now, you can use a brush. I got a brush here, and what I'm using is, you need some good wood glue, a Lock Bond or something like that. This is a Gorilla Glue. This is what I use on my builds. It never gives me any hassles. It dries in a natural color, and I find that it's the best for especially Les Pauls and things like that. It's quite strong, quite durable. So I'm going to set this neck now because when I'm probably going to lacquer this guitar afterwards, and I want to lacquer in the neck with the seams so the lacquer goes into the seams and gives it that nice finished look. So what we have is we have some glue in here on our in a little bucket, and we're going to glue it in first. Let me grab my neck. And here is that beautiful neck with some very unique features to it. And let's see what we can do here real quick. Apply some of our glue into the neck pocket. Just paint it in there. Now, Guitar Kit World gives you there's some holes in here. If this glue starts setting in, like seeping into the wood, it's doing its job. So apply it quite liberally. Don't skimp. Get it in there nice and good. You want to make sure that it's grabbing everywhere it should, and we can clean off the excess later on. So of course we don't want it on the top and things like that, but we want it up close. We're going to set this neck down in straight from the top down. Okay. While applying the glue looks very easy, you definitely want to make sure that you get enough glue in there. You want to put your glue on the neck and in the pocket. And as long as you have a proper fitting neck and you clamp it properly, there's really no mistakes you can make after that. Most people make the mistake of just not applying enough glue or using the wrong glue. Going to come off, of course. And we'll let that sit for a second. And I'm going to put some more in this pocket here. And we'll let it run down the sides a little bit. There we are. I'm going to use my brush just to brush a little more out. And you'll get glue squirting everywhere when you do this because you're creating a tight fit. There we are. That should do it. Okay. And I'm going to get a little bit on this seam right there. There we are. Okay. So now we're going to take our neck and we're going to place it in. Start this process, get it right up against the body right here, and it simply sits down in. Okay, and you're going to want this to drop all the way as far as it can go. Might give you a hard time with the glue on because the glue is taking up space, but you want this very firmly planted down, and you'll see the glue coming out the edge here, and that's fine. Okay. That. Now that that is secure and we know that it's fitting properly, what we are going to do is take this board here. Okay, know that's in there. I'm going to take a rag
wipe off some drips we got inside the guitar first. Let's get that out of there. Go. We'll clean up our fretboard and stuff later. No worries about that, guys. Okay. So the neck is sitting perfectly. I've already checked that. So what I'm going to do is, you see this piece of wood right here? It's got a little bit of a bent radius to it. That is intentional. And I'm going to put a piece of foam on this piece of wood. I got a little piece of two-sided tape here so it doesn't move on me. And there's our radius. And that's going to go right in this area here. So we're simply going to stick that. So we can lock that there on the fretboard. And then we're going to take this piece, do the same thing on the bottom, right here. Okay. So what you see, what we're doing is we're going to create a clamp. We're going to clamp down and make sure that this does not move, and let this sit for approximately an hour, and we should be good to go. And I use a quick clamp right here, and this is by cheap one by Harbor Freight. And we just keep it uniform. Push down. I'm a little off there, so let me go over here. I'll keep the pressure steady and right on the neck joint. And that should lock it right in place. Yes, so there we go. We are locked in place. Fantastic. So now we have a neck that is set in, and you see me grabbing it. It isn't going anywheres. This thing's going to be ready to rock and roll very, very shortly, and we can start assembling, which is pretty cool. I'm excited. It's a fast build, and that's what I wanted, a fast build, just to show how quickly we can do this. Now, like I said, the neck's going to remain a natural color, and this is going to probably get lacquered, so it's really going to pop when it's done. But yeah, I'm digging it. I hope you guys are digging it too. I hope you can see in the camera here how it is going. Our neck joints. I'm gonna. Okay, now that that's all done, what I'm doing after it dries is one coat of lacquer, a very thin coat, and then I'm going to sand it and let it sit for a couple days before we come back later on and apply some multiple thick coats of lacquer. I will, however, take the opportunity to put the hardware on the guitar and fit everything and even string up the guitar in the meantime, but it will require disassembly afterwards. Now what I use is a Watco lacquer. It is a nitrocellulose, and I find that if you take your time, it just works better if you do one thin coat, let it sit, sand it out, and then apply it again a few days later. It just seems to always work out better for me that way. So let's start setting some things up here, and bear with me because we want to do this correctly. And I got my bag of tricks over here and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to use gold adjusters, and they're going to sit in here like so. Okay, and then we are going to use the black ones here, and we're going to take these out. So this is just going to be a hint of gold here, and basically I'll press these ones in. These go in a little harder than those, and I think the reason for that is we have more of a solid block here than we do here, so that bridge floats a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is place these kind of where they go here, and then what I do is I have a brass hammer. Now I'm not going to hit this directly. I'm going to take this piece. I would prefer to use wood. There we are. That's better. And we are down flush there. Not quite flush. Look like we're about flush there. Let's pop that back into place. Check this out. There we are. And we are. Now, if I had different hardware and I am out, we would be using, I have chrome ones, but they just don't fit. Unfortunately, they are a different size to work with the 7-string saddle. They're too big, so they don't fit in there. So that should, theoretically, there we are, just like that. And that does work, so our saddle is in there. Okay, so we're gonna put that kind of down there. And we'll stick our bridge on. And we'll do the same thing the Gibson way. Adjusters to the front, and you can see just that nice little hint of gold, which I like. Maybe we'll do chrome on black on the front. Or maybe just chrome. Personally, I think the chrome looks good. So I'm going to roll with the chrome. All right, there's one. And we'll get the others out. And hopefully I have enough to do this. And I have more tuners than this, I'm sure. So we're put these in. And it's nice to get a guitar kind of assembled before you do your final assembly anyhow. It just always seemed to, man, I hope this is the right size. It just always seemed to work out a touch better. Yes, there we are. Good to go. And I had enough. I was worried, being 6, that it wouldn't be enough. But it is. So I'm going to grab a 10mm socket, and then we will get these straight and snug before we put our screws in here, but we're going to snug it first. So hold them, give them a snug, not tight because we're going to move them. Just enough to keep them from jostling. Okay, so let's turn the guitar over. And you'll notice that they're all willy-nilly. So how do we want to do this? How do we want to approach this? So as you can see, they're a bit different than what you might think. So I'm going to do these two in the center, nice and straight. And what I'm going to do is measure. I guess we could do them all straight, couldn't we? It doesn't look too bad like this. So let's just get an idea here. So this one's straight, this one's not so straight. That one straight, that one straight. So let's take our straight edge and see where we're at. Okay, center two are perfect. This one needs to come down just a touch. Right there. That looks good to me. And now we want to make sure that these are the same across this way. So we're just going to check our distance. It's pretty close. And that's good. That one's good. So that is, I hope you guys can see this, how we're going to run the tuners. And if you look from the front, very aesthetically pleasing. Looks good. Okay, now we're gonna put our screws in, and let me see exactly. We got black ones. I thought I might have had some gold, but I don't believe I do. So I don't think we'll be using any tiny gold ones, but I do have the black ones, which will suffice. Okay, so what I've done is I went through with a push pin and I start a little pilot using the pin, and it pushes hard because it's hard maple, so you got to work it. But then you can come back with your screw, start it, and you got a nice pilot hole. Providing you got a good bit, don't tighten these. Go all the way down till they're just about tight. And the reason you don't want to tighten them because you want to make sure that they're in alignment before you tighten them, because these can throw them in or out of alignment. These hold the tuner, but you want to lock them with the nut on the other side. So there is that one. And if you want to open up, you can take a small sheetrock screw if you want to make sure your holes are opened up enough for piloting, and a couple twists here, like so, and here, like so, and so on, etc. That'll make sure your pilot is perfectly straight. So basically we're starting these. As I was saying, I take a push pin, start a hole, use a sheetrock screw to open that hole just a touch at the end, and it makes a great pilot to screw these in. And do not tighten these screws down until you have your nuts on the other side secure and they're not moving, and then tighten them. Don't tighten these either, just snug them, and that's all you need. They just hold the tuner in place. And now we're going to come around to the top, and we're going to take our 10 mil. And as long as everything looks good from the front, we should be good to tighten down your first initial tighten anyhow. And you'll have to come back and do this again later on as the wood caves in on itself. And this was the reason we put those screws in, because it holds it so they can't move on you. And there you have it. Beautiful headstock. So you can either go back now and tighten these, and that's what we're going to do now. And you can fast forward through this, and I'm going to speed up the camera. They're just close, and that's that. Now we can flip this over and we can string it, and I know you guys are excited to do that. So like we said, bridge, and we'll have all our wires ready when we're ready to wire everything up, which shouldn't be too difficult. I'm hoping. We do have to fish wire, and so we got to use sometimes I use a guitar string method to do that and pull the pots and stuff through with a guitar string up to where they need to be. So there's that. Now let's get our bridge on. And let's put our saddle on. Go. End up putting some slinkies on it. However, so the reason, if you're wondering why the pickups are in right now, is so we can align them with the strings so they pass directly over the proper dots. Good thing. Now you can see how we're going to make this pass directly over the pickups. Okay. Because that is the most important. We can center the bottom one afterwards. Pull this out now and really give it a good push. We definitely don't want to break it. I definitely want to be deep enough. So, even though it appears that we would have room afterwards, at least let's get one started. Man, is this going to have some acoustics. Okay, and onto our last string. The nut has not moved. Everything is perfectly aligned. Fantastic. Okay, there's one down, ladies and gentlemen. One down. Okay, so now that we have the pickups in, I changed a couple screws and I put some gold in. I don't know why, just a touch. And we're gonna do our strap buttons now. And same thing, tack method, grab a tack, find your location that you would like it. In my case, I'm gonna put it right about here, not down in the center, but a little up farther. Put that in like that, find your location that you want it here, and my location is going to be right where there's a blemish, right there. That is my location for the strap button. Why not utilize that blemish? And then we simply take our rubber and our screw, and we can zip this in gently here. Gently. This guitar does not weigh a lot. So very gently. And normally I would have put it up higher, but it's going to be here because it does hide. And the strap, we're going to probably use a locking strap anyhow. So that is where that's going to go. And now we will do this one, and we find our rubber. I've already started the hole for the pilot. And this end, same thing. Screw it in. Just snug. There we are. And there is our strap buttons. Easy peasy. Very nice. Now, we can put our pick guard on, although we do have to do wiring, but we can at least get it set. And where is that pick guard? That is here. Is that going to fit? Yes, look at that. So we did the pickups properly. There's our wires. As long as they're going to give us enough room to do our wiring, we're fine there. And that's going to be, so that's going to go just like this, and this is going to go just like this and mount to the guitar that I had. So we'll use a chrome screw here. In this slider here. There we are. And it's starting to take shape. Now we may have to remove this when we do our pots, but at least everything will be in alignment. Now what I like to do here is bring it up not quite to the binding because we don't want to split open the binding. So we'll turn this on its side, like so. And I'm going to do the same thing and pilot this close to the binding, but not quite touching it. And that's going to be our hole. And then once again, we'll take a gold screw. Beautiful. And that raised that pick guard up where it should be. Very nice. Now this would be a nice pick guard on it too. Unfortunately, it is just the wrong size, although it could be cut to fit, but we are not going to use that. That goes to my Les Paul. It will be de-stringed. The frets have been polished. We will de-string it and condition the fretboard still. But we want to get it together, make sure everything's working properly. Again, the alignment is sheer perfection down through the fretboard. So we're going to tune this up too real quick.